Hi, Year 7. It's Mr. Russell here, and I'm going to be explaining for you all about the Landscapes Topographic Mapping Assessment. Now, here on Compass Resources is where you can find the Topographic Mapping Assessment. It will also be available to you under Learning Tasks. So once you click on that, you can scroll to the bottom and find the different attachments here. We've got the task sheet, the rubric, photographs for each of the landscapes that you get to choose from. So let's go over each of those individually. So let's start with the task sheet. Here we have it. So Year 7 Humanities, Term 2, Landscapes Topographic Mapping Assessment. So your task. So far this term, or for some of you, you started this last term, we've learnt about different types of landscapes and their distinctive landform features. We've also learnt how to interpret and construct topographic maps, particularly using aerial photographs. So your task is to use an aerial photograph to construct a topographic map of a landscape of your choice out of mountainous, coastal, or riverine. So how to proceed? You're going to examine two photographs of your chosen landscape, one aerial and one angled. You don't have to find these photographs yourself because we have provided them to you. I'm going to show you those now. If you go into the task sheet, you can find them there. So depending on the landscape you choose, just download the correct document. So here are the mountainous pictures. There's the aerial photograph and the angled photograph of the same landscape, same mountainous landscape. Coastal landscape, there's the aerial photograph, the angled photograph, and a riverine landscape, there's the aerial photograph, and there's the angled photograph. The reason that we have included an angled photograph is primarily because if we look at the mountainous landscape, it's quite hard to see the different slopes just using the aerial photograph. We can identify that there is a peak of the mountain there, and there's another peak over here, but it's a lot clearer if we have a look at the angled photograph, where you can see that same peak there and the other peak just over here. So that's why that's been included. So do use both to help you with mapping out your topographic map. So once you've examined those two photographs of your chosen landscape, you're going to start creating your map. And the first thing you want to do is draw the border of your map. Then you're going to give your map a title. So maybe mountainous landscape topographic map, or whatever, coastal landscape, riverine landscape. You're going to write the scale of your map. So you'll use the photograph or the photographs to think about what distance is that showing, and you will draw your scale or write your scale accordingly on your map. Number 5, you're going to use the aerial photograph to draw your topographic map. So this is where you're actually drawing the topographic map like you did in the lesson that was presented to you by Miss Spain. Once you've drawn your topographic map, you're going to insert contour intervals. So that's so that we know what the contour lines represent. Finally, you're going to look over your completed map and make sure that your map follows cartographic conventions. That means that it has all of the elements of what makes up a really great map: a border, orientation, legend, title, and scale. So with that in mind, let's have a look at the rubric. So here is our rubric. It has two sides to it. There is the map components, which is all to do with those cartographic conventions. You'll see, so 1.1 is border, 1.2 orientation, legend, title, scale. The second part of the rubric is about the topographic side of your map, the topography. So we've got contour lines and contour intervals, 2.2. So let's go through that all. You'll see that it says total mark is out of 16. The reason for that is that there are 16 skills that you can show when you are creating your map. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in total. So let's start with border, 1.1. So the bottom level of border, and to draw border is quite an easy skill, so that's why both of these levels of skill progression are fairly low on our rubric. So the first level is to draw a border around the map. Your border, to reach this level, your border doesn't necessarily have to be neat, it just has to be there. The next level up is that your border is straight. So you'll use your ruler to draw a really clear and neat rectangular border around your map. The next one, 1.2, that's to do with orientation. So that's to I'll just let you know that each of these photos are pointing up towards the title of the page that is north for each of these photos. They're all facing north. So if you include a north arrow in your map, then that's the bottom mark. If your map contains a neatly drawn and accurate compass to show your orientation, then that's the top level for that. 1.3 is to do with the legend or the key. So 1.3.1, your map contains a legend or key. If you've included it, then you get that mark. 1.3.2 is that all symbols on the map are included in the legend/key. And likewise, it's that all the symbols in the key are included in your map. So that's just making sure that you're being really accurate when you are creating your legend or key, legend/key. 1.4 is title. Now there isn't much to it. If you give your map a title and tick off the T of bolts, then you will get that mark. Now, if you want to do a really beautiful title with beautiful cursive writing and block letters or whatever, you can do that, but you're not going to get marked up for doing that. If you just simply write your title, you'll get the same mark as someone who does a really beautiful cursive block letter title. So there's one mark for the title. 1.5 is scale. So if your map includes a scale, that is the bottom level. If you look at your photograph and write down scale equals 1 centimeter is 1 kilometer. There you go. You've included a scale. However, you've got to really think about the length, the distance that your photograph is showing, and choose your scale appropriate to the content of the map. So there's no use going, if you're doing your coastal landscape map, if you're doing a coastal landscape map, there's no use saying that 1 centimeter here is 5 kilometers, because it's so clear that 1 centimeter on this photo is much, much, much less than 5 kilometers in real life. So that's where you're choosing an appropriate scale to the content of the map. So that's the map component side of things. The next part is to do with topography. So 2.1 contour lines. If you draw your landscape on the map, then you will get that mark. So let's say you're doing the riverine landscape and you draw your river like it's shown here on your map, you will get that mark. 2.1.2 is that you use contour lines to indicate levels of elevation. So you might not think about the distance between your contour lines, but you have included lines to show how steep a particular part of your map is. The next level up is that the distance between your contour lines indicates slope. So as we've already learnt, when contour lines are closer together, that shows us that that part of the map is much steeper. If contour lines are further apart, that tells us that it's not as steep, it's more of a shallow incline. So distance between contour lines indicates the slope on your map. And the top level there is 2.1.4, contour lines accurately drawn to represent landscape. So that means you've really closely looked at your photographs, or your photograph, and you have really thought carefully about the distance between the contour lines for different parts of that photograph to accurately represent the landscape that's shown on the photograph. So that's 2.1. And finally, we have 2.2 contour intervals, the numbers that indicate how steep the distance is between two contour lines. So 2.2.1 is quite a difficult skill. It's higher up because it's more difficult than any of these other things. And also, you can't have contour intervals without having contour lines. So contour intervals are labeled. That means that you have drawn your contour lines and you have labeled what the interval between those lines represents. 2.2.2, contour intervals are consistent throughout the map. That's making sure that if you say that the distance between two lines equals 10 meters of elevation, then you are being consistent about that interval throughout your entire map. You're not all of a sudden saying that the distance between two lines equals 50 meters, but you're being consistent about the distance between your contour lines. And finally, 2.2.3, the top level for contour intervals is labels critical points of contour intervals. So that means that you're not labeling every single contour line with the interval, but you're actually thinking about what are the main points. So if every contour interval is 50 meters, for instance, you might label every 100 meters, so every second contour line. It also means you don't have contour intervals, the numbers for contour intervals all over your map, but you think about where they need to go to make it really clear and not too crowded for whoever's viewing your map. If you want a little bit more information about contour lines and contour intervals, then please do revisit the video that Miss Spain made for our topographic map lesson sequence, which you can also find on the RHS Humanities and Cultural Studies YouTube channel. So I hope that you understand everything to do with the task and the rubric. If you have any questions, then shoot them through to your humanities teacher, and good luck with the task.